So, what we're going to do today, we've got Brother James Stevens on the call with us. He is one of our stake history specialists. Um, so he's going to go through a short slide presentation and talk to us about uh, what we need to be doing with our unit history. So James is going to go ahead and take a few minutes for that.
Alrighty, will do. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody had a wonderful Sabbath today. I will go ahead and set up the presentation. All right, should be up a quick minute. There we go. Can everybody see the presentation?
I see it. And
Alrighty, looking good. I will go ahead and start the slideshow. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Today, we're going to give more in-depth information about how to use the new unit history tool. It started, they started unrolling it in late 2024, but it wasn't until last year that it started to pick up speed. And our goal for the stake this year is to use this tool more effectively so that we can gather more stories in all of the wards and branches throughout the stake. Um, some of you, let me see if it moves. There we go. Some of you may remember the old way of how we collected histories. Prior to 2024, what we would do is we would do annual histories. And how that worked is every ward within a stake would compile this comprehensive history of everything that happened within the past year. It would then be sent to the stake, and then a stake clerk, along with a stake history specialist, would compile everything and then submit it all the way to Salt Lake City. However, what President Nelson and what the church historian at the time was concerned about was a lot of these reports were focused primarily on data, numbers, and statistics. And the thing that fell through the cracks was basically stories. Um, Stories that talk about our connection to Christ and how he has strengthened us. And the purpose of the church history library is to gather these stories. And these histories did not have them. Another issue with the annual history model was that it was the process was very convoluted. There was a lot of red tape. So a lot of people didn't know what to do to try to put everything together. And so within the past couple of years, this process has been done away with. And now we have moved more towards a unit history model. So, what makes this different from the annual history model that we've used in the past is rather than compiling everything at the last minute and sending it to Salt Lake by March 31st, this is an ongoing process. This is supposed to be a more organic way of how we can share personal stories. And it allows more collaboration, it allows more personal connections. And it's something that's going to go on for an ongoing basis. So there's no deadlines, there's no worries about data. It's just simply stories as they happen. Now, in terms of who does what, it's a little bit more streamlined than in the former process. So if you are a member of a branch or ward council, then you can write stories on this new tool. So that includes the bishopric, executive secretary, clerks, all presidencies, and that does include counselors and secretaries as well. This also includes temple frame history consultants and mission leaders. It's relatively the same on a stake level as well, but it also includes all members of the High Council and communication specialists as well. Now, if you're a history specialist, you might be wondering, well, if everybody within the ward council is already writing histories, then what's my role? Is my role kind of redundant? And the answer is definitely not. We need your contributions just as much as any organization presidency. And your job is to look for stories on the individual level. Organization presidencies, they're primarily only focused on what goes on within that organization. So, of course, Relief Society, they're going to talk about Relief Society activities. Primary, they're going to talk about primary activities. But your job is to find those stories throughout your ward. And you are also the one who helps delegate authority. We'll show you how you can utilize some of these tools further on. in this presentation. But overall, you're the one who reaches out, find these stories, and try to make connections in order to bring those stories to life. This is the link of how you can find the new unit history tool. It's fairly simple. It's just unithistory.churchofjesuschrist.org. Since you're going to be utilizing this tool often, I would encourage you to bookmark it at a later date or as soon as possible. But this is the main way of how you get to this new tool. But what specifically should you write about? The church isn't as strict as it was when it came to the annual histories. So rather than focus on data and numbers and certain types of forms, you're just writing about faith promoting experiences. And that includes any experience about the goodness of God, being people closer to Christ, any work with family history or in the temple, any ministering efforts with missionaries, or any acts of service. And this is both on a macro perspective and a micro perspective. So you're capturing organizational histories as well as individual histories as well. Just an example, the picture that you see on this slide, this was a painting that was painted by Sister Ishihara of the Swift Creek Ward. And that stirred in or it hung in the Fuquay building for over 15 years. And it was the only original work of art in the entire state. And for a building on the East Coast, that's kind of a big deal because original art is quite rare. And about a few months ago, because there were updates with the facilities management policies, that painting had to be taken down, unfortunately. And since it was no longer hanging, I wondered if I could capture her story and learn about the process behind her painting that painting. So I interviewed her for a few months, and she gave a testimony of how she expresses her love of God through art. And now her story has been captured, and it's going to be preserved for perpetuity. But even though the church is a little more lenient about what types of stories are allowed to be written, there are some guidelines about what should be avoided. And this includes, but not limited to, any information that causes harm or embarrassment. The purpose of history is to uplift others and bring them to Christ, not to rehash on some old drama. Anything that was shared in confidence, like anything in membership councils or confessions, that is strictly personal. Information from leadership meetings. It's one thing to talk about goals within a ward or a stake. It's another to share information that's shared in confidence or from leadership meetings within state conference when a general authority is speaking directly to leaders. That's only for leaders, not for the general membership. Financial information, and that's specifically individuals and church finances. It's one thing to talk about, struggling financially. It's another to give an itemized deduction of every single thing that's going wrong. Personal health information. It's one thing to share because we all have health trials, and that's sometimes a tool for us to connect better to God. But don't be so descriptive that you're giving every single symptom known to man, because that could fall under embarrassment. And the church wants to avoid that. This also includes things specific to the temple, like temple rites, clothing, and that's garments and robes, and a temple interior. That doesn't mean you can't talk about the temple interior, because since I work in historic preservation as my career, I talk about like motifs and whatnot that's found in buildings. And a temple, each temple has its own kind of motifs that helps us bring us closer to God. However, that doesn't mean you can talk about, hey, the emergency exit is in this direction, or the matron's office is in this part of the temple, because that's considered private. And we don't want that information to be used for nefarious purposes. If you are going to talk about a temple, like let's say there's a new convert who went to the temple for the first time, he or she can talk about the result from that temple trip, what they felt. Specific wording and clothing is considered private. So nothing beyond that. And anything that violates data privacy laws, and that includes but not limited to addresses, phone numbers, personal identifiable information like social security numbers, criminal history, sexual orientation, and all of that. That's all considered personal. And then I cannot stress this enough: no artificial intelligence of any kind. When Nephi was writing in the Book of Mormon, he said, I believe it's somewhere in First Nephi, he said, "Upon these plates I write the things of my soul." No amount of AI can replicate the things from the soul. It's one thing if you use AI to help with grammar or spelling. I do when I use Grammarly, but anything beyond that is considered inappropriate. The church wants to hear from you directly and not from a computer algorithm. This also includes artificial, like AI images as well. Um, I know there's a temptation to add images to a story to kind of make it seem like it can come to life a little more. Um, but what it does is it's not only tacky, but it also undercuts true creative talents in the arts. And when you create an AI image, the copyright for that image not only uh, it doesn't fall with you, it falls with the company. And copyright issues is something that the church does not want to step on. So when if you are going to write a story, don't use artificial text or AI text, and don't use AI images. Either use the real thing or nothing at all. Now, when you write the story, it stays at the stake level. So as soon as it's published, what happens is anybody in that congregation can see that history. So if I write a history for the Swift Creek Ward as an example, only members of the Swift Creek Ward can see that history. Since I'm a stake history specialist, anything that I write or anybody else writes on the stake level is available to anybody in the stake. But those stories only stay at the local level for only about 2 years. Because what happens is after those 2 years, those stories are then removed and transferred to the custody of the church archives, which is directly across from Temple Square. And after those 2 years, those stories can be accessed through the church history catalog, and then the website path is right below that. The goals of these stories is to not only uplift us locally, but internationally as well. The church wants more stories from around the world. They love the pioneer stories, don't get me wrong. Those stories are the foundation to where we are today. But now that the church is going internationally, they want to hear more from you directly. And this allows us direct participation in the preservation of our memory. And I like to conclude with this scripture. It's found in Alma 37, verse 8, and it says, "And now it has hitherto been wisdom in God that these things should be preserved. For behold, they have enlarged the memory of this people, yea, and convinced many of the error of their ways, and brought them to the knowledge of their God unto the salvation of their souls." Brothers and sisters, this work is an intimate one. One reason why I love the scriptures is because you had prophets write directly about their experiences. Those same experiences are happening to us today. And I testify that as we tell these stories and as we continue to share these stories, then I pray that it may uplift us at the local level, just as the scriptures have done for saints throughout every dispensation of time. And this I leave in the sacred name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thanks so much, James. And he's staying on. He's not going anywhere because we're going to have a short little. What I'm going to do is share my screen now. I'm going to walk everybody through from beginning to mostly the end of how to do this. Hopefully, everybody can see my screen now. And I'll give credit here to, I'm currently logged in on my wife's account. She's in the Relief Society presidency in the Lake Wheeler ward. So that will show what 95% of you will see. If you are a ward clerk or a history specialist, you'll have a couple extra tabs up here in this area that will help you to manage approvals and other things like that. So when you go to the unit history screen, this is what you see. It'll say welcome, and you can come over here and click quick start guide. If you want to go through these bullet points here, it'll kind of walk you through a few things. If you click on roles and callings, Brother Stevens went over this a little bit I wanted to add a couple um, at the ward level. Also, Aaronic priesthood quorum advisors and young women class advisors. They're not necessarily in the presidency, but they are also included as people who can be an author. They can write histories. Um, there might be a few more on here, but this you can go to the home button, then go to that quick start guide and come down to roles and callings. If you have any question about what your access is, that'll help you out. But I'll go back to the home. So this is what you'll see. If you want to create a story right now, and I did ask you guys to prepare a little bit, because we're doing this online, I felt it'd probably be easiest just I'll walk you through the process. Uh, this right here is in the Lake Wheeler ward. It was posted a little while ago, a couple years ago, but this is an example of the end product that you'll see when you're done, and maybe we can come back to that in a minute. But so you're all going to go to create a story, and you'll just click on that. That'll bring you to the next screen. It asks for a title of what you want this to be. So in my wife's case, if she's in the Relief Society, we'll just pretend here that we have Relief Society activity. Type that in there. You'll pick a date. Okay, so when did this happen? It happened on Thursday, the 15th. Sure. Okay, so you can go to continue. If there's something that required more dates, you can figure that out. It's right there. You can put an end date if it was like a young women's camp or something from this date to that date. Then you put all the dates in there. Click continue, and that'll bring us to the next screen. I'll scroll down a little bit so you can see. So if it's for a specific organization, such as Relief Society was this activity, then you could come here, click add organizations, uh, click on Relief Society. If it was some other organization, then you can click whatever it pertains to. And James, if you have anything you want to add as we're going, that's fine.
Okay.
Let's see. And then, okay, so I didn't add it. I clicked on it and then I didn't hit submit. So there you go. Click, it'll add it right here. You have a 5,000 character limit on what you can write. Now, most things that you write probably won't be that long. If for some reason you have something pretty extensive that's going to be longer than 5,000 characters, what you'll do, you can put a summary or whatever you're going to put up in this area for that history. Then you can come down here. You can type it up on a separate document and come down here to documents, and you can upload that document. So if it's 20,000 words or whatever, you can have that uploaded right here. If you have pictures, this is where you would click on this and go to a file and search it and add it in here. Okay, so those are the main things on this. Then when you're done, not necessarily when you're done, there's this one other one that says add authors. So if my wife here in the Relief Society presidency wanted to add somebody else to collab with her, like maybe someone else in her presidency, she could click all these other individuals if she wants, whoever she wants to have access to help write, they could also have access to come in here and write the history too.
Before you continue, I think Tom Smith or Brother Smith raised his hand.
Okay.
Go right ahead, Brother Smith. Okay.
Smith, I think you're muted.
And then I think,
James, can you unmute him?
oh, yes, I can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
I'm going to ask to unmute.
Everybody's automatically muted. This is a webinar.
And, oh,
Okay,
there
can
we
you hear
go.
me now?
Yes.
Okay. I noticed on there with the pictures and stuff that it said JPEGs only. Is there any way if we had a movie of, say, some activity that we wanted to have brought up to go with it, is there any way for that to be uploaded, or is that potentially something further down the line? Are we limited only to JPEGs?
I would say right now it looks like we're limited to what it says right here. And I don't know what scope the church has as far as videos. Um, so no, I don't have an answer for that other than what I see here.
Okay, I was just wondering if anybody's
Yeah.
come across that before. Okay, thanks.
Not a
Yeah, I mean
problem.
that would be kind of cool. Yeah.
And then we got another one. Narda Dudley also has a question. I'll go ahead and allow her to talk as well. Um, you can go ahead and ask your question, Narda. Be sure to unmute as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
can you
there's
hear me now?
okay. Yeah,
Yes,
I
we can
can
hear
hear you.
you.
Good. It used to be in years gone by when you added a photo to award history, you had to have permissions of everyone who was in the picture. Is that still the case, or is that no longer a requirement?
So for the most part, you don't need used to you would have like a form and you had to get signatures from every single person to get to have that form uploaded. That is not a strict requirement. However, it's still courtesy to ask everyone if they have their permission to upload it. If you do not have that permission, do not upload it. So you don't have to do like all the paperwork to try to get it online, but you still need to ask as a courtesy. Um, so still ask as a courtesy and then post it, but we don't need the strict like all the paperwork anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem at all.
Okay. And I do see Sister Duval in the Garden Ward says she has a release form. Do you know anything about that, Brother Stevens?
I know the
You need
release
a
form
release
was
form.
I know the release form was used for the annual histories,
Yeah.
but I think that is outdated. I do have to double check to be sure that that's still a requirement. But that was specifically used for the annual histories. Not sure if that's specifically used for the unit histories because there's no option in the unit history tool to gather those types of documents.
Yeah.
Um, but if need be, I can update and let everybody know if that's a strict requirement. But from what I can tell, from what I've read, it's not a strict requirement anymore. But I'll let everybody know if I find out otherwise.
Okay. So if you are at a point here, now it's not letting me submit. It says I'm missing required fields. I don't know exactly what that would be, but I'm sure if I was more thorough and put everything in there, it would be fine. So if I get to a point and I'm not ready to submit it for review to the next person up above me, as then I would click here and hit save and close. Now, what I'm going to show you after it does that. So this is a draft, and if let's say I leave and I come back a week later and or whenever and want to find it again. So let's say you come back to the home screen. All you're going to do is come up here to where it says My Stories. Click on that, and it'll show you any unfinished drafts that you have open still. And then you can continue to work on it and submit it when you're ready. So after, does anybody have any other questions at this time before we move on from this? All right. So Sister Jenkins says we were told in primary that we're supposed to have parents fill out forms.
So
And
I did look at the main unit history tool requirements. And from what I read, and this is directly from the quick start guide, it said ensure you do not include materials that violate someone's intellectual property rights. For example, do not use materials created by someone other than the author of the story without their permission, such as photographs, articles, poems, or music. and don't use content generated by artificial intelligence. I do not see anything about specific forms but this wasn't something that I saw in any of the directions. I will double check to be sure, but I didn't see any of the documents listed in the unit history tool. It was considered a direction for older uh, processes like the annual history, but I will be sure to update everybody if I find out otherwise.
Okay. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the chat to see if there's anything we missed. All right. So Julia up here asks, some people don't want any pictures of themselves or children taken or shared online to respect privacy and not embarrass. How do we handle that? Do we need permission from everyone? I think
if I could clarify, the main purpose is to just gather the stories. Photographs are considered optional. If there's someone who does not want this store, what doesn't want their photograph to be displayed, respect those requests. The main purpose of these stories is to capture the text. Photos are considered it's like sprinkles on a Sunday. It's nice, but that's not the required portion. So again, photos are not strictly required.
I think a good practice could be just if you're at an event or a activity where you are taking pictures that you plan to submit as part of the history, you can ask everyone that's there if they have any objections to this being posted on a ward history. So, okay, and there is a FAQ. Where is that located? The FAQs, is that under the quick start?
Get rid of this. Double check this to be sure.
I think I saw it previously. Got it in the chat. Click help FAQ. Help FAQ. Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. So here's a lot of question and answers that we've just been hearing. So I'll let you guys scroll through and look at those. So what we want to do now, I've kind of showed you how to create a story and go through that process up to where you would submit it. So what happens after that? I'll pass it back for a minute to Brother Stevens. He's going to show you this point of view his point of view, where it has the extra tabs up here, and he'll show you, for those who can approve these, what they'll be looking at. Let me stop sharing my screen. There you go.
I'll go ahead and share mine. Okay, I'll go back to the home page. Okay, so if you are a history specialist or a clerk or a member of the bishopric, you have a few extra tools that you can use to more effectively use the unit history tool. So let me go to the stake here. There we go. Since I'm a stake history specialist, I have access to everyone's history, so I can click on anyone and see their progress so far. But if you're a history specialist, you have this manage tool up here. And the main one you will use is something called Story Manager. And when you click on that, you can see every single draft that is within all the stuff. So I see a few more that have been added. And then if need be, you can jump in and edit those stories in any way that you need to. When you decide to submit a story, it doesn't get automatically published. It just sits in a queue. And so, what the history specialist does, or clerk, or member of the bishopric, it sits in this approval queue. And then what you do is you look through the entire history and see if it contains any sacred, private, and confidential information, if it's grammatically correct, if everybody got permissions for photographs. You're the quality control. You make sure that everything is cleared before you hit submit. If everything's good to go, then you can submit it and then it's automatically published. Now, if you know that there's a story and you want that person to tell that story, you can go under invites and you can add different recipients. Since I'm on a stake level, there's the stake presidency, high council, and everybody else. I could directly reach out to anybody and I can add the title and the dates and the organizations that's relevant to the history. Then I can give directions as to what I think should be added. For example, a few days ago, I reached out to President Halls to talk about his how he was prompted to choose Ashley Stevens as the new patriarch. So I pretty much added him and then sent him some directions of what to share. And of course, that's still up to him. If it's considered too private, then that's his prerogative, and that's fully understandable. But for example, if you have a new member of the Elders Quorum and he's a new convert, you can send something to the Elders Quorum presidency and you can ask, hey, there's this new person who's part of your quorum. Could you ask them to share their conversion story? And then they can go ahead and share their story. The reason why not every single person within a stake can write stories is because if you have thousands of people write stories at the same time, it's like the Wild West. So having stories being written limited to ward council and other leaders, it serves as a quality control reason. But still look out and seek out those stories. There is also an activity report as well. Since we're just starting to kick off with histories, it says, how many invitations have been sent, drafts pending approval, and published. Garner first word, wow, that's phenomenal. But as stake leaders, we look and see how everybody else is doing, and we'll go more about specific goals in a moment. But those are some of the extra tools that you have if you are an approver, and that's clerks, bishoprics, and history specialists have access to all these tools.
All right. So let's go over a few stake goals, and then we'll pass some time. If we have any other questions at that point, we can go over those. But so as a stake, we would like to see each organization in your ward, wherever you are at, if you are in the young women's presidency or a young women leader, then we're talking about, your young women's organization in your ward, or if you're in the stake primary or stake, whatever your role is right now, we would like your organization to submit one history a month. And that's our goal for this year. If everybody, and we understand, I pick on Sunday school a little bit because they're probably the least exciting of most of the auxiliaries, but and I pick on Danny Wolf because I was talking to him earlier today. But you might have to get a little more creative to come up with some histories. James, I think you gave me an idea just a little while ago, or you threw out an idea for Sunday school. If you want to repeat that.
One example that I thought about is if you're in a Sunday school presidency, one thing you can share is maybe there was a teacher who had an exciting object lesson for Come Follow Me. And that teacher could share, hey, this is how I taught this principle. And these were some of the things that I felt prompted to talk about for this week's Come Follow Me. Or maybe someone in class gave this point, and I thought it was an excellent point, and it enlightened the class in this way. So even if your organization doesn't have as many activities, I think there's still stories that I think are pretty valuable, especially in Sunday school.
Yeah. So we'll leave it to you guys. I'm excited to see what we can do with this tool. if I can do it, um, anybody can do it, and that's the truth. Um, so I just went through pretty basic setup here. It's kind of like, it's not social media per se, but it's kind of like that in a way where all you really need is, okay, so we had this activity. Uh, it was fun. Explain a few things about what you did at that activity. We fellowshipped, we talked. I know in the Lake Wheeler Ward, the Elders Quorum every year has a pie night, and people get together in the back parking lot with some fires in the, not wildfires or anything, but in the little fire pits, chairs, sit around, eat pie, and talk and socialize with each other. And that, something simple like that. Maybe you take a picture of people that are there. You can ask their permission, make sure it's okay, and post a picture or two, people eating pie, explain what you did at your activity, and post it. You know, it doesn't have to be over complicated. We want even the simplest things, because as we know, small and simple things are great things are brought to pass. But so we appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to give the last little bit here to President Hafen if he has a few words that he would like to say. Are you there?
I am. Thank you to Brother Wilson and to Brother Stevens. Thank you for preparing to speak to us today. And most importantly, thank you to each of those who are on. We appreciate your support. We appreciate the work and service that you're providing in your callings. In thinking about the question, the why, if you will, is why is this important to us? I've thought about that as we've prepared to come together today. And one thought that continually has come to my mind is the Savior himself. As we know, in the Book of Mormon, repeatedly emphasized the importance of recording our histories. The Savior requested to even review among those within the Book of Mormon when he was here personally, requested to review the histories that they had written. He then taught and requested that they edit and even correct some of the histories that had been submitted. And in thinking, I ask myself, why? Why does that matter so much? And what comes to mind again is that what this helps us do is preserve the work of God in seeing the hand of seeing His hand in our lives, as well as recording those spiritual moments that we have together and recording them for future generations. When we submit ward history events, whether they're from your organization, whether they're at the ward level or even the stake level, we're doing far more than just administrative work, but we're helping fulfill the divine pattern of recording when the Lord speaks to us, when we get together, when His children are together, and when we exercise our faith together. That's very special. The records become a testimony of faith, a testimony of service, and a demonstration of the Lord's hand in our lives and in our wards, in our young men, our young women, and whatever organization it is that we're serving in. And ensuring that those experiences that we have today can help and strengthen the testimonies of future generations to come. So thank you. Thank you for the great work that you're doing to help us record those histories. I know it's important. I'm so grateful for the technological advances that help streamline this approach and make it so much easier. Where appropriate, I think it's just so wonderful. Again, I know that we've got some questions about pictures, and we'll get some answers to those. But how wonderful is it to be able to just post a picture even, and a brief synopsis of what's taking place in that picture, to capture the workings of the Lord within our lives, within our wards, and within our organizations. We have some questions that we'll work to answer. Thank you for your questions, and if you have any others, please let us know. Brother Wilson and Brother Stevens, thank you for your work in presenting to us today. And as Brother Wilson mentioned, we would love to see each of these histories come through on a monthly basis. so members of our stake can share and experience and join in their faith together. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you, President Hafen. And just to be clear, we'd like for once a month, but if you are on a roll and you have more things that you could share and put on your ward history, then feel free to do more than one a month. We're not trying to limit anybody. There was one other question in the Q&A. Maybe it was gone. Okay. Sister Duval, I think you're in the Garner ward, asked a member to share about their daughter's baptism. Should I have sent it through primary? That would definitely be appropriate to do. You can, just like Brother Stevens showed, you can, since you're a history specialist, you can send an invitation to the members of the primary presidency and help them work to submit a history for that baptism. So
And
absolutely.
one other thing to add, if you submit a story and you realize, oh my gosh, I forgot a few details, or oh, I forgot to post this, photo without permission, what you can do is you can message the history specialist directly from your ward. And what the history specialist can do is, even though a story is published, that history specialist can revert that story back to the approval stage. And when it's in the approval stage, then that specialist can give you permission to add some additional details. So even though it's going to stay at the local level for 2 years, the specialist at any time can revert those stories back if there's additional details or corrections that need to be made. So no need to fret if you realize you need to add additional details to a specific story. And I think President Hafen had a question as well.
I'm so sorry I hit that by accident. No question. Thank you.
Not a problem.
All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for being here. I hope that you learned something. And if you've already been messing around with the history tool and figured a lot of things out, then help somebody else in your ward figure it out too. This can be an open forum. We won't leave this up forever, but I'm Brother Wilson. We've got Brother Stevens here. He's a very good resource. He can answer virtually any question about stake history, ward history, etc. So feel free to reach out. We can set up individual additional trainings if we need to within a ward if it's warranted, or individually or a small group. Happy to help in any way that you need support. Just let us know. Thanks again, everybody. And
I think Brother Nelson had a question. He said, just to confirm, we need permission from all people and large group photos. That would be preferable, especially with children. Even though when you publish a story, it's just going to stay at a local level, so nobody outside of our stake will ever see those stories. After 2 years, it does go to the church archives. And thankfully, archivists in the church archives, they are much more strict when it comes to access. So they can black stuff out as well. But for large group photos, I would ask and get permission from everybody, just so we can be legally clear. And it need be, if you don't have access, the main focus is on the stories themselves, not the photos. Photos are nice, but they're not strictly required.
Yes, Brother Stevens can send out the slide presentation that he had for sure. A lot of the things that he covered on there are also at this home site for the unit history under, if you do the quick start guide and go to, click under these bullet points: introduction, creating stories, approving stories, roles and callings. A lot of it can be answered under those as well. So hopefully between us all, we can figure this thing out and have a lot of histories going on. So again, I'll go ahead and end it. Thanks everyone for being here. Go get something to eat for sure. Take a nap. whatever you want to do. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
I think we had one more question from Brother Jones. He
Oh,
said,
no.
I don't know any names of people at group activities. What do I do? Um, if you don't know everybody, you can just give just the story and not the photograph. You can tag some people that's mentioned in the story. And then if you find some more information later, then the history specialist can go back and add additional people as well. So no fret if you don't know all the names of everybody within an activity. You can just add the ones that you do know. And then when you find out later, you can add that at a later date.
Yep. More reason to go up and ask people, right? And get to know others.
And then we'll also send a copy of uh, this whole recording as well, so that we're all on the same page.
All right. Have a good day, y'all. Bye.